From the corners of the internet to the wave signals transmitting through your brain, you are now sinking into all aware. Preparing transmission signals. Stand by.
Silent scan.
Broadcasting off the grid in Central Texas. This is the All Aware Podcast.
Thank you.
Please stand by for your host, Nathan Roshawn.
Well, welcome to another episode of All Aware. I am your host, Nathan Roshawn, and in the co-pilot seat tonight, I've got my friend and buddy, Echo Hotel from podcast Nightwatch. We have an amazing opportunity to interview one of the most educated, down-to-earth, and informative individuals on this subject, Kirk Beck, on the power of using affidavits to lift yourself out of the clutches of government corruption, and different proceedings that may not be followed exactly how the law should be and might be against you. So Kirk Beck, he is a United States Army veteran, also known as the real Captain Kirk. He is an author, presenter, engineer, and retired educator with over 40 years teaching things that really matter. So I'm excited to have you on here tonight. We only have you for an hour, so without further delay, I'd like to go ahead and bring Kirk on. It looks like he's here right now. So welcome, Mr. Kirk, or could I call you Captain Kirk?
Captain Kirk would be really good. I like that.
All right, great. Echo, are you on here as well?
I am. I'm here. Really excited to talk to you tonight. We're actually hoping to learn something because Nathan and I have both been through affidavit processes, and it seems really, really difficult to get to the end of that process and complete it. I'm really good at writing them and sending them out, but the enforcement part is what I really want to know about, and that might even come in the next show. We'll see. But yeah, why don't you let's let you kick it off and start where you want, Captain Kirk.
I think a good place to start would be how it started. The first time I really came across affidavits, and I had my whole curiosity began probably 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago. At 2:00 in the morning, I'm traveling with my wife-to-be, and I get stopped for a rolling stop. 2:00 in the morning. And I was puzzled. I mean, causing me concern. Who am I bothering? Why are you doing it at 2:00 in the morning? And the more I thought about it, I realized, hey, where's the money going? Well, it was unsettling to me, and I guess I've always been a person who's kind of curious. I like to ask questions. And I have to admit, I'm a recidivist when it comes to rolling stops. I just can't seem to stop stopping.
I have that problem too, though.
I've been out here in California for 38 years and never had one speeding ticket, but I get 5 of these rolling stops. Well, I lose 1, I lose 2, I lose 3, I lose 4. I've lost them all. I tried different techniques going into the courtroom, and then I found myself in a peculiar situation. I'm on the the jury pool for a case where a man and his mother are on trial for 17 felonies.
Hmm.
Only have to do with the real estate scheme. I'm sitting right behind the defendant the first day, and he says something to the judge, and the judge cut him off really fast, and he says to the defendant, you've had a chance to have an attorney. You've chosen not to have an attorney. So you're just going to have to play by all the rules. And the defendant is right in front of me going like this, just shaking his head. He wasn't going to argue with the judge, but he was making it clear to me, at least, and anybody else who was watching, that he did not agree with what the judge was saying. 2 days later, I'm one of the 16 now being paneled as a possible juror. And the judge goes through the process of what he called his questions to the jurors. One of them is the one I remember. They're representing themselves, 17 felonies. Does that in itself cause you such concern that you would not be able to render a verdict? And I didn't say anything, but the judge picked up on some of my body language. And as soon as he got done with that, he called me out and he says, exactly, you seem to have a problem. Perhaps you could illuminate as to what's going with the problem. And I said, yeah. And basically, I had the courtroom for about 5 minutes. And I went over 2 points. The only one I'm going to mention is you were reprimanding the defendant a couple days ago, and I think I know what's going on there. I think he wants to have an attorney as a counselor, but he doesn't want the attorney to take over for him. Then he would lose his ability to defend himself. Well, that was enough. The judge said, "I'm going to take a short break here," and it was 15 minutes later. I was told I could leave. Well, this happened to me before, so I thought this, I'm so curious about this. I think I'll come back the next day, and I sat right behind the defendant, and I took him out for lunch, he and his mother, and that's where I learned about Jack and Margie Flynn. They're the ones who taught me the affidavit process. They're the ones that illuminated my mind to common law and jurisdictional questions. And I really began to learn. That's how it started. When I went back into the courtroom at lunch, and I found out from the defendants, kind of closure on this part of the story, that when they went back into the courtroom with the attorney stood up and said to the judge, well, after proper consideration, Your Honor, I think the best thing I can do is recommend psychiatric evaluations on both of these people.
Mm.
Wow.
Well, you can imagine the defendant had no idea that was coming. And my heart went out to these two people because they were doing the best they could to try to defend themselves.
Right.
Margie and Jack, states away, were trying to help them. But I kept going back to the courtroom, and this thing lasted 3 months. I'd go back every once in a while, and I'll never forget the day that I was out in the hallway talking to them, and out came the defense, the prosecuting attorney with 3 other attorneys. They were going to fry this guy, and they did. He got more years than the actual culprit, even though these 2 people lost money in the transaction themselves. They weren't able to deal with the court mechanism. And I'm sure they're probably out of jail by now, but boy, did it ruin their life, yes. But this got me started in the process. And I have a tendency not to pay fines. I get really upset when I get these things and then I lose in court. So the next step in my case, in my learning process, was I'm defending myself in a misdemeanor case because I'm driving on a suspended license because I didn't pay the fine. It wasn't because I was a drunk driver. I just didn't pay the fine.
Right.
And so I'm feeling pretty good about the way I'm trying to defend myself. And at one point, I objected to the DA, and the judge asked me, "I want you to explain your point of view." And I did, and he said, "Okay, we can stop right there." Now, listen to these. This is where, to me, you do the law sometimes. You don't always win, but the goal is to learn and not
Right.
become a constant victim, but learn from your mistakes. The judge gave me a tremendous point of reference. He said, "Mr. Beck, you have brought up some very valid points. Nevertheless, that's not why we're here today. You should have brought those up in a pre-trial motion." Wow. Because my mentors have kind of told me that it's important to establish certain things. Do not go into a courtroom and start raising constitutional issues. If you're going to raise constitutional issues, you have to raise them in a pre-trial motion.
That makes
Wow.
sense. Yeah.
So, big learning curve, but it doesn't have to take that long for the next guy to pick up on what I've missed. It's important to get to the court and specify to the court the jurisdiction that you want to operate under. Here are some very important words from the Declaration of Independence. He, speaking of the king, has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Wow, Jefferson has packed so much into those words. One of the points is Declaration of Independence preceded the Constitution by 11 years. He's
Yes,
not
it
talking
did.
about
Yeah.
the United States Constitution. He's talking about the common law. That was the driving force of law in the United States, in the colony, was the common law. And the principles of common law are so very important for Americans to reestablish with the courts. I interviewed a judge once who was running for, well, she wanted to be a judge. She was a district attorney. And I waited till everybody was pretty much gone. And then I asked her, "Ma'am, what's the Seventh Amendment?" And she turned very red and she said, I don't know. I said, "Ma'am, that's the right that'll gives us, that's the amendment that gives us the right to a jury trial in your courtroom."
Yep.
Oh, she really felt embarrassed now. She didn't even know the amendment gave me a right to have a jury trial in our courtroom. But the Seventh Amendment goes on to also say, "and all the facts will be adjudicated, basically, according to the rules of common law." What are the rules of common law? We, the people, if we're going to win this war, we are going to have to know the rules of common law. And as you kind of mentioned already, one of the key points of common law is notification of your adversary. Put them on record that you know what they should know, or
Right.
what they're trying to cover up. Hope that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job. We have to notify them. We do that by paper. We don't need to go into their courtroom. We can simply put down on a piece of paper what are the facts. Again, Jack and Margie Flynn taught me how to do this. So I got another one of my rolling stops. This time I decided we're going to play the paper game. So the first thing I did, I followed Jack and Margie's plan exactly. I wrote the deputy sheriff, a nice letter explaining what he did wrong. And we assume they'll never answer that. And he didn't. To quote a good friend of mine who's a deputy sheriff, he said, I don't know anything about the Constitution. I only know penal codes and statutes. That's what most police officers know. So when he didn't answer the letter, then step two is I send him an affidavit. And in my affidavits, I have a critically important first paragraph and a very important final paragraph. The body of the affidavit depends upon the situation. I've done 5 of these. I can go over all 5 of these in this, they're very different situations entirely. Most of the time, I've been a defendant. What we need to become better at is enforcing. And I've tried and moderately successful in using an enforcement technique that works better in California, perhaps, than in many other states. What I did, I wrote the affidavit and I went to court and I took a witness with me. Never go into court without a witness. Never leave the court without the minute order. Make sure that they don't doctor it up after you leave, because they'll do that. But if you get the minute order and you look it over before you leave, if there's anything wrong with it, you can make sure it gets fixed before you leave. So I went to court expecting to have to say something. I was happy that the deputy showed up because I don't want to win just because he doesn't show up. But he came in, he gave the bailiff a piece of paper. The piece of paper was given to the judge, and literally within 5 minutes of that deputy walking that room, the judge said to me, Mr. Beck, your case has been dropped. You may leave.
No, that's excellent.
Wow.
I was gone. I was very, very excited. My God, this works. It wasn't that hard. It cost me $9.60 to send the green cards. You always send green cards on your affidavits to make sure that there's evidence that they received it.
And that's the registered mail green cards, right? Okay.
Right. I do all my affidavits at my local bank. I get them done free. I used to do it at the credit union, but they charged me $10. I think you can get them free at AAA.
So when you say that you get them done at the bank, what do you mean by that?
I take my affidavit in and I have it notarized.
Gotcha. Okay, the notarization process. Okay.
Thank you for making that clear. Yes, you have to have it notarized. An affidavit is simply a statement of the facts, but it's being notarized by a court officer. So
Right.
It's very important that it is properly notarized and that goes out to them. Believe me, these guys, these police officers and government officials, they're used to getting a lot of nasty letters from people, but they're not used to getting a tactfully, respectfully stated affidavit with their name at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you how important it is that there's a name at the top. I want to know who is the guy who says you have to do something.
Right.
We had a guy here in Riverside who was a chief medical officer. And even though we have a sheriff, this is during the pandemic, I'm not going to close anything down. I'm not going to go into any church and stop people from doing what they want to do. He basically told the governor, it's a mandate from you, it's not a law, and I'm not enforcing it. But we had a medical officer who had his minions out telling all these restaurants that they had to close. The majority of them were listening to them. Well, I had been studying this pandemic thing pretty quickly, I mean, from the very beginning, and I came across David Martin. Now, David Martin is a wonderful scientist and also a very skilled legal mind. And he basically came out what we call the Fauci dossier, which basically points out many things. But the key thing in my case was, in my situation, was the Code of Federal Regulations stipulates exactly the method by which a epidemic situation could become so grievous that the government has to come in and start closing things down. They never did any of this.
Exactly.
Right.
They were supposed to do independent review boards. They did none of that. There was no consent. They ran right over that. I put that in the affidavit. I sent that to the chief medical officer. He did nothing. So here's Jack and Margie Flynn. You take that affidavit and you put it in another envelope with an affidavit to the person who's responsible for that person. In this case, 5 supervisors all got the letter or the affidavit. Now we're putting the supervisors on the spot. What are you going to do about this maverick down here who's running over federal regulation? Now, you never know why you win. They never tell you. In my court case, all they said is they dropped the case. They never can tell me, oh, he knows the law real well, so we didn't want to mess with him. No,
Right.
they don't tell you anything.
No.
So all I know is a really odd thing happened to this medical officer. I'm following this very, very closely, and I see that they're going to have a closed-door meeting with this guy. And okay, it's Thursday. Friday, the paper comes out. My God, this isn't what I wanted. He was temporary. Now he's permanent. Well, I don't understand that. Hey, Monday's paper came out. This permanent guy has just resigned. Resigned? Well, why would they make him permanent and then he decides to resign? Well, I can only guess. Maybe it had something to do with a pension.
I was just I was saying that same thing. I was thinking he wanted his pension.
So oddly, I mean, I'm a very curious guy, and I like to talk to my sheriff, police chief, DA. These guys know me by my first name. And I went to see the sheriff about 6 weeks ago, and I brought this topic up. And he said, yeah, it was kind of strange that he just resigned like that, because he said his wife couldn't get a visa from Australia to come to the United States because of the pandemic. So he just decided to quit his job and go down and live in Australia. Didn't make sense to the sheriff. Didn't make any sense to me.
So is this Chad Bianco?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure because we're on the same boat. So I want to make sure what we're talking about with him.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a case where we went after somebody and we got some good results. Margie and Jack say a lot of times you don't want money, you just want to get rid of these people, or you want them to change their habits. One thing we want them to know is take note, we're watching you and we're going to hold you accountable. Because that last paragraph of my affidavit says you have 30 days to rebut. If you don't rebut within 30 days, here it comes. Everything in this affidavit can be used against you in any court in America.
Yep.
And they never rebut.
Nope.
They have never rebutted Margie and Jack Flynn in 6 decades.
Yep. No, they never will.
No, they can't, because as Margie and Jack say, if it's based on the law, Constitution, if it's got evidence, proper evidence, facts, and truth, how could they rebut it? What they will do is they'll tell you you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're a mental midget. They'll call you all kinds of stupid names, but they'll never rebut because attorneys are pretty smart. They don't want to put their name on something that could be used against them.
Yep.
So they don't sign those things.
Yep.
So
an affidavit, just to clear things up for those who might be tuning in, who just, that word, they hear it a lot. It means a lot of different things. The context of that word that we're talking about here, and you are, Kirk, is that it's just a document that states factual information about a situation or a subject that is notarized under penalty of perjury or under yes, some people say under God or whatever, that this is the factual and actual truth, and it can be used in a court setting or other settings. Just it doesn't have to be from a lawyer; it can be from anyone, and it can have the same power, right?
Right.
Okay.
Now, thank you. That's good. I've got this from. This is back in 2020. If you remember the problem with COVID, there was a Michigan judge. Her name was Cynthia Stevens, and she decided to give the county, that maybe it was the whole state of Michigan, 2 extra weeks to count ballots.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's what I thought was interesting. Michigan Court of Claims Judge Cynthia Stevens essentially extended the deadline for mail-in ballots to be counted even if they arrive after the polls close on Election Day, which stood as the previous deadline. Stevens attributed her ruling to the impact of the Chinese coronavirus pandemic. Quote, "The unrefuted affidavits and documents compel the conclusion that in light of delays attributable to the COVID-19 pandemic, mail delivery has become significantly compromised," and she goes on. But the key words are unrefuted affidavits and documents. So when we put an affidavit together, in the case of the one with the chief medical officer, we included the Code of Federal Regulations wording that pointed out where he was making his grievous mistake. So you want to add the additional information, but the point is, it wasn't refuted. Now,
right.
I kind of think this one is where people on the left are using an affidavit in order to get 2 extra weeks to count ballots. The left uses these all the time. The
Yes.
people on the right need to learn how to use these effectively.
Yep. Absolutely.
As I said, I usually use these for defense mechanism. The second one I got on defense was that 20 years ago, I was back in South Dakota visiting my mother. And while I was there, I got involved in a traffic problem again. I didn't hurt anybody. I never hurt anybody, but it's another traffic thing. And they wanted me to come to, it's just traffic. I'm not going to stay an extra 3 days to go down to the courtroom. I'm
Right.
I'm going. Well, about 10 years later, I went to buy a gun, and what's this? They got a bench warrant. Bench warrant. Oh my God. So what am I going to do with a bench warrant? Well, let's take a look at the particulars to that issue. I put that in my affidavit and pointed out, hey, according to common law, and this is the body. I don't want to go into great detail. I put that in an affidavit with those 2 nice paragraphs and sent it to the presiding judge in Minnehaha County. 3-4 weeks later, I checked, it's still there. That Oh, okay. I take the affidavit, I put it in an envelope. And this time, I have an affidavit made out to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the state of South Dakota.
Hmm.
2 months later, bench warrant's gone.
Wow.
Hey. There it is.
I think I just found a missing piece.
Now,
Yeah.
the key thing here is, remember, there's no victim. I've not hurt anybody.
Right. Exactly.
There's nobody in my 75 years of life have ever hurt anybody enough they would take me to court. I'm a very mild-mannered person. I've been in one fight my entire life, and that was one too many as far as I was concerned. So I'm not a real fighter, but I do believe in loving this country, and I have to stand up and I have to fight for liberty because it's not free. Too many people died, especially that Revolutionary War gave us all of these opportunities, and it's terrible that we have not followed through and done what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, well, we we could talk about, how the education system has failed our younger people here, but that'd be a whole nother show. But you're absolutely right about that. So
Nathan and and Ed, if I could just pause for a moment because I'd like to tell the audience and who's watching this, listeners, that I have a free gift that I would like to give to them at the when we're concluded here, and I'm going to explain it more in detail later, in not much detail, but just a little more.
perfect.
By all means, please. Yes, please do.
Okay, but I wanted to give you another example of where we used it kind of as a defensive mechanism.
Yeah, sure.
I went to my assemblywoman, I went to my state senator. They're both on the left. And I went in there with witnesses and I said, my question to you is, according to the Declaration of Independence, what is the purpose of government? Now, I've never had one government official ever answer this question properly. But the state senator has been state senator for like 8 years. The assemblywoman was fairly new, but you would think somebody who's been in the Senate for 8 years would know why he's there. But he said, well, to protect the people. I said, that's not what the Declaration of Independence says. The Declaration of Independence says life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, period. Everybody knows that. Here comes the next word. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And I said to her, your job is not to run over my rights. Your job is to protect my rights. That's why you're going down up to Sacramento. And 6 months later, she was sponsoring a bill that would make my pastor a felon for simply counseling somebody who might have some questions about their sexuality. We hit her with affidavit. And again, they'll never tell you why, but we do know this. That bill, which had passed the Senate, had passed the Assembly, was waiting for Jerry Brown's signature. For some reason, when they came back to discuss the bill, they decided to drop it. And what's very interesting to me is that she, a year later, 6 months later, when a resolution came out, not a bill, not a law, not a statute, just a resolution, she did not even sponsor the resolution. So I consider that a win. She's not as bad as she used to be. She's listening, or maybe she's a little bit afraid of what might happen if she does it again. I don't know what her rationale was, but I just know she's not as bad as she used to be.
Hey, someone showed her that people were watching, Yeah.
They have to sign the green card. It's not just a nasty letter, somebody mad at her. They have to sign that paper, and then they know, hey, they've got record that I got this. They're looking at it with different seriousness. And I think it's very, very important. I've got one more. I like this one. I went into Best Buy, and Best Buy said I had to wear a mask.
I can relate to this. I can relate to this. I bet you I know exactly what you're going to say. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So I went back and I researched the law because I already know about Fauci's dossier,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this is wrong. So I just put a affidavit together, but it was a little bit different because I'm dealing with a corporation. So I couldn't just put it in the mail. I had to deliver it. I had to serve it directly to them. So I had to drive down to Glendale and give it to their server. Corporations, you have to serve their legal service. So I did that. And so we're going to go to court. They had to show up. People ask me, well, did you win? They had to show up. If they have to show up for me, and they have to show up for you, and they have to show up for you and you and you, they're not going to do this. There was no way that they could get out of it. The court required them to show up. So
Yep.
I take it as a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, that commissioner made several mistakes, and therefore I had to send her an affidavit explaining what she did wrong. And I filed a complaint with the grand jury. A lot of this has to do with critical mass. Until we have enough Americans who understand the law, so that if I go into court and there's 16 people with all the same shirt on, and we're all looking at the commissioner, and we're going to say, we got this affidavit on you 3 years ago, you're not fit to be on that court stand. You need to step down.
Right.
Always with respect. You never want to embarrass judges. You just want to make sure that they understand the law, and that's why you want to do a lot of it in pretrial motion. If I were going to do this over again, I asked for pretrial motion. They didn't give me one. Matter of fact, they told me the day of the hearing on Best Buy, they told me in the morning they didn't allow it. Oh, okay. It's a chess game, Nathan.
Yeah.
It's just a chess game. They move, you move. So next time I go back to court, I'll go into a courtroom 2 days before. And I'm here by special appearance. I'm talking about this piece of paper that's been filed. I want common law. I don't want statutory jurisdiction. I don't want commerce. I don't want merchant. I don't know what you want to call it. I only want common law. And we need to just learn enough law so we can become confident in what we're doing.
So you're talking about, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so what you're talking about is there's different court jurisdictions, and there's procedures that go with those jurisdictions. And most of the time we're in a jurisdiction, if we let them set the default jurisdiction, that is probably not in our best interest. So you have, the common law, which is pretty much non-existent because now we are under maritime or admiralty kind of law jurisdiction. And then you have company or U.S. UCC kind of jurisdiction, which is company. Am I on kind of the right track of what you're talking about between the jurisdictions?
Yeah, it's commerce. A lot of it's commerce.
Commerce, yeah.
Yeah, we got court decisions. Once, this is Mello versus U.S. Once jurisdiction is challenged, the court cannot proceed when it clearly appears that the court lacks jurisdiction. The court has no authority to reach merits, but rather should dismiss the action. And that's what Jack and Margie do. They go into courtroom and they go through simple procedures, and the end of the procedures is, therefore, Your Honor, I move for dismissal. And that's
Right.
generally the way it goes.
You have to back that judge into a corner.
Yes, politely. That's why
Yeah.
you don't want to do that in front of a whole bunch of people. I want to do it with a whole bunch of people that are on my side back there.
Yeah.
Back there. I don't want to have the courtroom to embarrass the judge. They don't need to do that. That's why I want to have a pretrial motion. There's nobody in here except the bailiff, the clerk, and my people, and the judge.
Did we give you enough time to? You had mentioned a gift. Did we give you enough time to cover that?
Yeah, I just want to admit that later on, I was going to mention that at the end.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We got to take a quick break anyways here. It's a little bit about a half hour in. So if you want to kind of mention anything before we do that, and then we'll get back into the second half of the show.
Well, sure. What I would like to give to any of the listeners is simply a template of the affidavit. In other words, that extremely important first paragraph and that very important final paragraph. Because these are the paragraphs that kind of lock the recipient into, oh, I have a responsibility to answer. If I do not answer, it could be considered fraud. People don't want to be accused of fraud. The final paragraph again states you have 30 days to rebut. If you don't rebut, everything in it can be used against you in a court of law, and that includes anybody that you send down to represent you. In reality, they shouldn't even be able to open their mouth in the courtroom. Now, I'm investigating this. I was talking to a couple of judges on this. They're not judges anymore. And they were kind of disagreeing among themselves. And I think the best thing to do is say, yeah, you have 30 days to rebut, otherwise it can be used against you in any court of law. In pretrial motion. Do that in pretrial motion. Not in the day you're going in on their dime. You want to go in on yours. And that's where if they have not rebutted that, the judge should be saying, why didn't you rebut? Case dismissed.
Right.
Yep. All right, we'll be right back here in a minute. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Do you like All Aware Podcast with Nathan Roshawn and want to keep up with new episodes? Like and subscribe on these popular platforms. YouTube.com/AllAwarePodcast, Rumble.com/AllAwarePodcast, Facebook.com/AllAwarePodcast, X.com/AllAwareShow, Podcast.apple.com/AllAwarePodcast, and anywhere else you watch or listen to alternative media. For more information about the show, visit us online at allawarepodcast.com. Kirk Beck has offered a free gift to the All Aware and Nightwatch crews tonight. Check out his website, affidavitsecrets.com/aware for this exclusive gift, as well as his heavily discounted course only offered to you, the True Rants Network audience.
Yep. All right. We are back here with who I like to call Captain Kirk. His name's Kirk Beck. Talking about affidavits, and my co-host is here, Echo Hotel from Nightwatch. So let's get back in. We were just talking about some of the affidavit Mr. Kirk has used. And the last one that he was talking about was at Best Buy, and then he has a free offer he's going to give you guys, which is a template so that you can start doing this for yourself and get out there and start changing the way things are happening in the United States and perhaps otherwhere as well. So welcome back, Kirk. you can, if you want to continue on what you were speaking about there, sir.
Again, thanks so much for having me. This is a very delightful opportunity. The desire I have is for Americans to recognize that it's we the people. We the people. It's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
those who are elected. Personally, I, I appreciate people who tell me how bad the problem is. But after a while, if you're just going to tell me how bad the problem is, you're not going to tell me what I can do about it, or you're going to tell me, get out there and let's get the vote. Let's go win that election. Well, we got something happen in 2020 that was very, very peculiar. And it caused a lot of people to have less confidence in the electoral process. And I thought, gee whiz, it's kind of interesting in the Constitution, it hardly talks about elections at all. There has to be a method by which we, the people, can control government. Frederick Bastiat wrote the book, The Law. In that book, he made a basic statement that I've carried with me for 30 years. If the law can be kept to its proper boundaries, it makes no difference who's elected. I don't care. I would prefer to have someone highly moral, who's
Right.
smart, and passing good laws. But as long as the person sitting in that position isn't stepping outside the law, I'm not that upset. I don't know if you guys know this, or your listeners know this, but I think in New Hampshire, they get paid $100 per session of the assembly. $100. They don't even have a room. They don't even have a desk. They have a drawer. And because those people want to get back to work. It's not a full-time job, so they just want to go there, do whatever has to be done. And after a few months at the most, they go back home.
Yeah. That's how it used to be.
Our legislators make over $100,000, and they want to be up there all the time. And the
Yes.
longer they're up there, the more bad laws that come out of it. But when these bad laws are passed, I always ask, well, who's the sponsor? Who sponsored the bill? That's the target. That's the guy or the gal. Go after that one. Put 30 affidavits on her desk or his desk. And here's the part that hasn't been played yet. You're passing laws that are outside the Constitution. We've warned you about it, and you continue to do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So here's your court date. And I'll see you in small claims court in Riverside County. Whoa.
Interesting.
Now, wait a minute. If Best Buy had to send somebody, how are they going to try to get out of this? Because California has a very interesting statement regarding small claims court. It's open game for discrimination. And what is more discriminatory than somebody passing a law that's in violation of the Constitution and your rights? I can't imagine. So, my goal is to get 30. I just like the number 3, multiple of 3, and 30 is a nice number. We have 30 people that all send the affidavit to the same maverick, the same recidivist who continues to do this, and then we file a claim in small claims court, and we're going to see what happens. Is there some way you can get out of this? Well, we'll find out. And then we'll research the law. But we're not going to let these people continue to pass bad laws. We're going to find out who's doing it, who's sponsoring it. And every time I turn around, it's that, I forgot his name. He's doing it all the time.
Out there in California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have Corey Jackson too. He's more local. But We find out the people who are causing the trouble and we go after them. We're not threatening them with guns. We're threatening them. We're not even threatening them. We're just simply telling them, hey, look, you got to answer this. Otherwise, it could cost you some time in court. They're used to just doing whatever they want to do. And they know they're Democrats. They're probably going to get elected again anyway, no matter what they do. Well, we, the people, can do some things. And it begins with trying. I didn't know what would happen with Best Buy, but Best Buy had to show up. And if an assembly person has to show up, it's going to change everything. They'll stop passing such stupid laws if we can get them into court.
And, I know people think that they can't, I mean, what's the worst that can happen if you send an affidavit out there? I mean, you tried, you did something about it. It's better than sitting back and not doing anything, or just, complaining about it to friends and family or whatever. Right. So, I'm just trying to, I kind of passionate about what you're talking about too, because, it works. And, even if it didn't work, let's say that somebody has the worst case scenario, it's not going to work. You did it. You tried. It's out there. It's on record, or it's in the court system, or it's sitting in somebody's office or something. It's there. The intention behind it is known, and you can sit back and say, you know what? I'm not just sitting here, bitching about it. I did something about it. I sent letters to this or that, or I sent affidavits. So, just kind of wanted to piggyback off of what you're saying there, that, because I know I can already anticipate some of the guests, or I mean, some of the listeners are going to be like, oh, well, yeah, I can't do that, or I'm not good at writing, or what am I? Who am I? Right. So, well, I mean, there's ways to get around all that stuff. And the main thing you got to do is try and do something. And this is a good thing for everybody to start with, right?
Every Thursday night, I have a Zoom call. People can just call in and chat, and I'll explain. I pulled up last time. I pulled up my affidavit on traffic, and I kind of explained my position on that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't practice law, but I give information to people, and it's not brain surgery. It's not that difficult. My affidavits, I try to keep them to no more than 2 pages. Specify it. The last page is basically where the notary is putting all of her stamps on it. So it's not long. You don't want real long affidavits. Once you've done 1 or 2, it's pretty simple as to all you have to do is do a little bit of research, and as a group of people, hey, if we decide to go after one of these assembly people, a group of 2 or 3, 4 people can do enough research, put it into the affidavit. Everybody else just kind of piggybacks on it. All we ask is that don't sign something you don't understand.
Right.
An affidavit is not that difficult. But a lot of times I see people have these petition signing meetings. Everybody comes in and signing. I went to one where it was like 7 pages long, and they want me to sign it. I don't want to sign something that unless I know what's in it. So the affidavit is going to be short, and you ought to understand it. I just mentioned this one right now. I'm working on one on the Attorney General. Do you guys know who David Daleiden is?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't.
You're back east, right, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm between Central and East. Yep.
All right. Well, David Daleiden's out here, but he exposed Planned Parenthood's organ harvesting.
Okay. I do know, huh?
Yep.
7 years ago.
Yep.
And they're still trying to indict him as a criminal. But the 9th Appellate Court recently ruled that the Oregon law statute, not a law unless it's constitutional, the statute was unconstitutional because a journalist has the right in a public forum to use a camera to catch everything. That's what David Daleiden did. The Oregon law is proved unconstitutional. The California law is a piggyback on it. Why are you still going after David Daleiden, Mr. Bunta? Why are you still doing that when the appellate court has said that your statute is unconstitutional? Obey your oath. He's also doing something with Heartbeat International. He's accusing them of misconduct and disinformation. He needs a polite, respectful, but firm affidavit avalanche to straighten up. See, the thing is, if you accuse these people of breach of their oath of office and they don't rebut it, hey, you're going to run for office again? As somebody running against you, I would like to be able to take this out and say, all you people are going to vote for somebody who violates his oath of office and thumbs his nose at you? No wonder our country is going down the toilet. Does it matter to you at all that this man says the oath of office doesn't mean anything to him?
Unfortunately, a lot of these guys don't even have an oath of office these days.
Well, that's another question, yes.
I have a question for you, because I know we're running short on time. Unless you've got a few extra minutes, I've got a question I've wanted to get in for a little while now. I've sent out some affidavits through this process over the last probably 8 or 9 years of being a state national, and I put everybody on notice. They know who I am, for one. I know Nathan's done the same thing, and a lot of our affidavits include 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, I believe, which is conspiracy of rights under color of law.
Yes.
Or no, violation of rights under color of law, and then conspiracy of rights under color of law. Do your affidavits include that? And what are your thoughts on that?
There's more than one way. I don't want to skin a cat. Let's say more than one way to fly a kite. A lot of this stuff works. I just simply find that my own personal opinion, because I have a good friend who's a national and he talks about this a lot. I just simply say, from my point of view, I know who I am. And every time I have a potential conflict, I'm going to alert the people who have a problem with. I have a problem with the Department of Motor Vehicles. I sent them an affidavit. They did nothing. Okay, I took the affidavit, put it in an envelope, sent it to with an affidavit to the sheriff, to the police chief, and to the highway patrol. If I'm stopped, I will simply give them my paperwork. You want my driver's license? Here it is. Now see, some people go so far as to say, well, you can't have a driver's license, you can't vote, you can't do any of this stuff. See, that gets too complicated for me.
Mm-hmm.
I need a driver's license if for no other reason, just to make an ID. It's easy to get ID with a driver's license. Am I driving? No, I'm traveling. Rare occasion I take a passenger to Mexico for occasionally. I haven't done it in 3 years.
Some tacos and a beer.
Yeah. But so I know this works, but to me, it's just a lot of work. To me, I just simply, if I've got a problem, I'm going to alert my adversary to who I am. And I'm going to demand common law jurisdiction. Now, this is another critical mass thing. There's certain things I realize there's no use even doing this until I've got critical mass. But if I get 30 to 50 people in the county that are kind of on board with this, one of the things I'm desirous of doing is sending an affidavit to every judge in the county and putting them on notice that what Jefferson said in that Declaration of Independence is most definitely true today. we are being subjected to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution.
Yep.
We want common law. It's common sense. There are lots of things. I've written, I think, 6 or 7 essays on rules of common law that I have standing. I had a discussion with a police officer, hardcore cop, sad story actually, because I said to him, well, if you're walking down the street and you saw 2 men mugging a woman over there, what would you do? And he said, I'd just keep walking. Wow. So, well, most people are going to like call the cops. They're going to yell at them. A few people are going to be brave enough to go over there and risk their life. But to the cop, I said, let me change the scenario just one bit. The woman over there that's being mugged is your mother. Now what are you going to do? See, that's common law. Common law is you treat your brother. You treat that stranger like he's your brother.
Yep. Yep.
Another scenario with police officers. Man's coming to you with a club and a knife. What are you going to do? I'm going to take my gun out. I'm going to put it right in their chest. I've heard that 2-3 times from cops. I've been trained, put the bullet right there. Okay, let me change the scenario just a bit. The man coming at you with a club or a knife is your son, your own son. You're still going to put the bullet right there where you know you're going to kill him? Or are you going to figure 10 other ways to disarm him without killing him?
That's a great way to look at that, man. That is a great analogy there.
100%.
This is common law. And those judges need to know we understand common law. We expect common law. If we don't get common law out of your courtroom, then we're going to have problems with you, and you're not going to be on the judge. You won't be up there. We will recuse you. Look, 99.9% of the people are going to walk into your courtroom and they're going to say, hey, what's up? They don't know, and they don't care. It's 1%, 2%, 3% of the American people are the only ones that are going to care enough to do anything. And that's all we need.
Yes.
That's all we need.
I got a quick story I want to tell you before we close out. It was probably about 4 years ago. My son was 17. He was still a minor. And like you, he doesn't like to follow traffic laws. He took a dirt bike out for a joyride. And so they impounded the bike, and then he had to walk home. So I started sending affidavits out to the judge and to the court date and everything. And come court date, I expected that it would just be, hey, we don't want to, brush it aside and dismissed, and it wasn't. And so we sat there through this court hearing, and everybody was guilty. It was all DUIs and whatnot. And finally, they called his name, and I jumped up. And before I even passed the bar, I started into my spiel about reserving my rights and constitutional rights and everything. And I wouldn't pass the bar until he said, yeah, your constitutional rights are reserved in this court, which they're not in a traffic court, but I wanted it on the record. And when I got up there, I said, Your Honor, I have affidavits in this case. I submitted over a month ago. And he said, well, I don't see anything. And so he goes and he looks and looks and looks, and he said, oh, here they are. And he brings them up and he said, yeah, those aren't relevant. I said, well, yeah, they kind of are. And he said, well, I'm gonna put this over for trial and put in a plea of not guilty, or a plea of not guilty. And about the time I tried to say, you're not going to plea for me, down slams the gavel, and we were on our way. But I looked back, and the entire courtroom was like, what just happened? Who was this guy, and how was he speaking to the judge like this?
Yes, sir.
So we left, and I put in more affidavits, letting them know, hey, this is not a good idea. And the next court case we went in, and they kept everybody out. We were the very last ones.
Yep.
It was me, the sheriff, Riverside County Sheriff, the guy on the bike, who I thought would not show up, but he did, and the bailiff. And I commenced on to rail on these guys. I brought up his oath of office. I brought up the Constitution. After about 10 minutes, the judge shut it down and said, "We're not doing this anymore," and said guilty, and they cleared the courtroom. And I was like, they literally just walked all over me, even with affidavits, everything. They walked all over us. And about 6 months later, I looked this judge up, and he was transferred over to Hemet. He was gone, vanished. So at some point it was a win, and at some point it wasn't. But they did not like the fact that I had affidavits in this case, and I was bringing it up. Like you said, I tried to do it in pretrial. They didn't want to go pretrial. They ignored it, so it went into regular trial.
That's crazy.
You see, John Quincy Adams said, "Duty is ours, the results are God's." When we go in doing the best we can, God will meet us. He'll show us the way. How do we force the judges back under the common law? They're not going to go willingly.
True.
We're going to have a lot of pressure put upon them. When they know it's not just Ed, it's not just Nathan, it's Ed, Nathan, Tom, Bill, George, Sally, all these people have got he's now a target. He's target of our affidavits, and we're coming after him. He doesn't have to worry about his house getting torched. Nobody's going to shoot him. We're just going to go after his pension. We're going to go after his livelihood. We're going to ask him to step down. Well, we'd rather have you just repent. You're probably a decent guy. You just need to start acting right.
True.
You're getting away with this for 5 decades. I don't expect you to change overnight just because I came down here. But if we do it the right way, respectfully way, and we just hit them with more and more information and bring it to their attention. After all, he's got a boss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, this guy's doing a bad job. We're coming after you now because you've got a responsibility to make sure that this judge is honoring his oath.
If I remember correctly, I actually sent it to the chief judge of Riverside County.
Yes.
And that's when a few things changed.
Here's I work with another group as well called Tactical Civics.
Mm-hmm.
Tactical Civics has a plan to get the grand jury back in force. Not a grand jury that the DA and the judges run, but a grand jury run by the people. Because you're never going to get the government to be an effective job of governing themselves. It has to be the people.
Yep.
This is just one more level of understanding that we have to come to. I just finished reading a rather long book on the history of grand jury, and it's astounding how much influence. If you remember Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall in New York City, Boss Tweed got run out of town by the grand jury.
That's right.
He tried to escape to Spain. We had him extradited. We had him brought back, and he died in prison because of the grand jury, the people's grand jury that went after him. Now today, we don't know what the grand jury really is.
Right.
A lot of learning to do.
It's been hijacked.
But the whole thing is, it's just a matter of doing our job and coalescing together. Like, Ed, you're down in Temecula, right?
Yes.
You say, I'm in Riverside. So Ed's in Temecula, I don't even know him. I got to know this Ed guy. Because you know people there, I know people here. We put these people together and we start growing the understanding of law so that we're not naive. In one area of law, we'll know more than the judge does, and we'll hold them accountable to it. It's critical.
We're actually brothers in tactical civics. I found tactical civics about a year ago, and my passion is when they finally get to start enforcing this stuff. You know, we're still building, we're still recruiting now, but when we get to the enforcement phase, that's when I get excited.
Well, me too.
Hey, well, Captain Kirk, it's been an honor having you on the program. We're getting ready to run out of time here, so I want to just give you the floor to kind of figure out. I know I want to know more, and I'm sure that the listeners and the people watching this want to know more. How do we get in touch with you? You know, you said you had a class, and just kind of any way that we can get this information out so that we can start changing this dynamic that we have here.
Well, Ed and Nathan, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share the message of the power of paper. As a gift I promised, I want the viewers, the listeners, to go to the web browser and type in this address, affidavitsecrets.com/aware. Affidavits is spelled AFFIDAVIT. Affidavitsecrets.com/aware. When the page loads, scroll to the bottom and look at the box at the bottom for the red dashes. Type in your cell phone number and click the button that says, yes, I want this free thank you gift now. Within a few minutes, we will send you the free gift. While you're on the page, we invite you to take advantage of the 50% offer that we're special on the course that we have available. It's exclusively 50% to these listeners only.
Wow, that's awesome. We appreciate that.
As for what I'm doing Saturday nights at 9 p.m., I'm on for 1 hour, and I just take questions. I have an ID, a Zoom ID, and I can give that number here.
Sure, we'll put it up on the screen too.
655-269-0083.
All right, that's your Zoom ID for anybody that wants to join in. You said it's going to be this Saturday coming up at 9.
It's Thursday nights at 9.
I'm sorry, Thursdays.
That's Pacific, Nathan.
Yeah, Thursdays 9 p.m. Pacific time. 12 midnight for the East Coasterners, 11 p.m. Central. All right. I'm glad you cleared that
We're
up.
done. Great time, guys. Great time.
Hey, it's been a blast. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yes,
I really
sir.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, hopefully we get you on again and go over some of this stuff after we
grow our group to 30 and go after the Attorney General. That'll be good.
Hey, I would love to be part of that group.
You do that.
I'll help you do that either.
Let's get it done.
I got a few states we need to do that in.
And the thing is, Nathan, you can do it on our Attorney General. You know
Yeah.
why? Because common law says you have standing. Anytime you see your brother being molested by the government, you have standing.
Amen to that. Yep. Absolutely. All right, guys. It's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Goodbye now.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Kirk.
Bye, Cap.
Do you like All Aware Podcast with Nathan Roshawn and want to keep up with new episodes? Like and subscribe on these popular platforms. YouTube.com/AllAwarePodcast, Rumble.com/AllAwarePodcast, Facebook.com/AllAwarePodcast, X.com/AllAwareShow, Podcast.apple.com/AllAwarePodcast, and anywhere else you watch or listen to alternative media. For more information about the show, visit us online at allawarepodcast.com.